Hello everyone and welcome back to more of the Fruit of Grisaia. We are making our way to our master's grave. With Makina on a motorcycle. Yeah. About 2.5 hours have passed since our departure from the dorm. We've reached an area I know by sight. No longer even bothering to check the map, I doggedly ride up familiar mountain roads towards our destination. The path begins to narrow steadily. It's still paved, fortunately, but soon it's thin enough to deserve the description of farm road. If a car were to come in the opposite direction, then we wouldn't be able to pass each other by. That said, the odds of us running into traffic are pretty much zero. At this point, all we have ahead of us is one lonely cell phone tower and an iron gate guarding the entrance to an obscure national forest. The only people we could possibly run into here would be maintenance workers for the telecom company. Or tourists who took a few wrong turns, I suppose. Bobato labors at the final stretch of the road, straining to carry his two passengers up the 15-degree slope, 26 at its worst points. His tablets clack beneath us in a constant chorus of complaint. And finally, after passing 3 sets of faded signboards reading authorized personnel only beyond this point, set some 100 meters apart, the iron gate we're looking for comes into view. We are here, Makina. Makina spreads her legs wide open to push herself over the tandem seat, lowering herself to the ground in a less than refined fashion. The girl rubs her tender rear and through her skirt, twirling around like a dog chasing its own tail. Turning my back on her, I insert my key into the padlock on a hefty iron gate. Well, it's technically the country's mountain. My master and I lived in the cabin up here, managing the land. Let's see, I guess it's about a 30-minute walk from here? I'd like to ride up there myself, but I don't think Bobardo here would handle a rocky slope like that too well. Beyond the open gate, a coarse gravel road continues into the mountain, slanting sharply upward at a good 30 degrees or so. Unless you're driving a 4-wheel drive Jeep or a dirt bike with off-road tires, getting a vehicle up this would be pretty tricky. Amani's Bobardo is a road bike, poorly suited to mountain trails to begin with, and given the ridiculous lowrider remodeling, it'd clearly get its belly stuck in the dirt before climbing 10 meters. No, it's only steep by the entrance. After 30 meters or so, the slope gets a lot more gentle. I kill Bobatoro's engine, then sling Makina's rucksack over my left shoulder, leaving our friend sitting in first gear in the middle of the road. The two of us step past the gate. Things haven't changed much in my absence from the mountain. As always, the air is thick with the lusty cries of cicadas, but there's no sign of human presence. Other than the squawking insects, the only sounds are the crunching of our feet against the gravel and weeds, and Makina's labored breathing, growing quieter and louder with every minute. You alright? The girl can be surprisingly stubborn at times like these, probably an attempt to demonstrate she's not a helpless weakling who needs to be babied constantly. Still have to be sure to keep an eye on her, though, or she might end up collapsing to the ground and falling asleep on the spot. About what? Well, let's see. Where do I even begin? Come to think of it, although I've brought Asako up numerous times, I don't remember getting into the details. Nobody really seemed interested, I guess. No. I guess it was just too awkward to ask. My master's name was Kusakabe Asako. We first met when I was 12 or 13 or so. She was a lot older than me, obviously. I'd lost my entire family a while before this. At the time, a friend of my dad's had taken me in, but well, that family friend was what you'd call a bad guy. The kind of man who slips through the cracks in the law, profiting off misery and tearing money away from soft-hearted people. The bad guy in question made some enemies on the shadier side of our government, bit off a little more than he could chew, and they decided to bring the hammer down. And the small assault force that invaded the villain's lair, mansion, and suppressed it in the blink of an eye was led by my master, Kusakabe Asaka.
つまり子供の頃のパパを悪者から救い出してくれたのがその師匠なのね。
Yeah, that's the basic outline.
それからはずっと師匠と一緒にここで暮らしたの？
Not constantly. I lived here for the first year or so, but I ended up getting shipped off to America fairly soon because of some circumstances with Asako's employer.
カリフォルニアのサンディエゴな。
Good memory.
その後はバージニアのクアンティコで結局また日本に帰ってきたのよね。
That's right. And between all that, I lived with Asako. She's the one who helped me find the strength I needed to live. This reminds me of a book I used to read called Across the Nightingale 4. And this kid's, the village got burnt down by this evil warlord, and this traveling, samurai or whatever, found him and basically took him in as his own and kind of trained him and stuff. Kind of like that. But I mean, it's not really like Yuji's situation, but it's kind of like his situation, so I decided to reference it.
つまり今の私にとってのパパみたいにパパにとっては師匠はママみたいなものだったのね。
Don't think Mommy quite covers it. I mean, if I had to categorize a woman, I'd say she was my master. But in the sense that she raised a cowardly, snot-nosed brat into a reasonably competent man, I guess you could say she was something like a mother. Kusakabe Asaka was the only person I'd ever call master, and the only person I ever will. I was nothing but a filthy little cockroach she'd happened to carry home from her job one night. We weren't related, she had no obligation to do anything but flush me down the toilet, and instead she spent the rest of her life raising me. The woman was a force of nature, infallible and unshakable. Even if she's gone, Kusakabe Asaka will always be the strongest woman in the world to me. Just as I estimated, after about 30 minutes of trudging up the mountain, the forest around us begins to thin, and the rough dirt trail grows gentle and slow. As we reach an even plot of land that seems to have been cut neatly out of a natural plateau, a single log cabin comes into view beyond a chained-up metal gate. Alright, Makina. We're here.
疲れた。暑くて死ぬ。
Grew up in? Well, I guess you could say that. Yeah, this is the house where I was raised. It's only been 2 months or so since I left, but the cabin's already under siege by thick wild grasses. The sight inspires a small twinge of melancholy. I'm tempted to start attacking those weeds right away, but I guess we should go in and rest for a while first.
いやーね、女の子を家に連れ込んで何する気？ふふ。
No, don't even go there. I have to call you up Amana and give her another scolding. Okay, removing my keyring from the carabiner I've been using to fasten it to my belt, I select an old-fashioned key with a dull golden color, push it into the equally old-fashioned keyhole on the oil-finished teakwood door, and give it one rotation to the left. I like it. It's cozy. The interior of the cabin, naturally enough, hasn't changed at all in the months since I saw it last. Oh, that flower should be dead. Oh, game, come on. Continuity here. Even after I left, I'm pretty confident JB kept up that melodramatic habit of dropping by for a solitary drink in memory of the departed. But although she's surprisingly averse to cleaning for someone with such an anal personality, maybe she wasn't quite lazy enough to leave her crumpled cans of potato chip wrappers lying around the place. Okay, so I guess JB took care of the plan.
ここがパパの育ったお家か。なんていうか、思ってたより物が多いのね。ちゃんとテレビもあるし。
Well, it's not like I was living on my own. Only partially paying attention to the conversation, I wander over to the fridge and reach for the handle. Still cold. Guess the electricity's still flowing. Want something to drink? Might have been a hasty offer. Nothing but beer and smoked cheese, huh? Naturally enough. I emptied out the fridge before leaving this cabin behind. What little we do have is clearly just leftovers from JB's visits. Other than the booze and snacks, there's also 3 bottles of my favorite eye drops sitting on the lower shelf. Probably the woman's attempt at a thoughtful gesture in case I decided to return at some point. I retrieve 1 bottle of eye drops from the fridge and glance over at Makina. Hey, Makina.
Huh?
Catch.
何これ目薬
Don't drink it. A sniper's eyes are their life. Give that stuff a try. If you apply some to both eyes 30 minutes before shooting and stretch your ocular muscles, your focusing speed changes pretty dramatically.
はあどれどれ
Gazing curiously at the bottle in her hand, Makina carefully breaks the seal, then leans her head back with the mouth slightly ajar to apply the drops. 1 drop per eye is plenty. No need to blink too much either. Give it a second, then start slowly moving your eyes in figure 8s. As her eyeballs begin to move back and forth underneath her lids, Makina's upper body sways along with them. Slowly open your eyes. Alternate between looking at something nearby and something far away. Helps get you focusing properly.
手元を見て
That's all there is to it. Just repeat this 4 times a day, morning, noon, evening, and before you go to bed. You still listening?
ねえパパあの写真って
Makina's eyes, after focusing at random at a distant object, have stopped darting back and forth. She's staring at the middle of a small bookshelf where a single photograph of Asako and me as a kid stands in a frame. When I left this cabin behind, I deliberately flipped it face down in an attempt at symbolic closure. But now it's been returned to its original position. Damn it, JB. Mind your own business.
あの写真の人が師匠の人
Yeah, that's right. I reach out and take the frame from the bookshelf. This is the one and only photograph of Asako remaining in this world. It was taken not long after she first took me in, the day she dragged me off to a zoo in Ueno on what seemed like a whim. Not really a photograph I want to show off, but I pass over the frame to Makina, who proceeds to intently contemplate the photo inside. Asako glowers at the camera, eyebrows furrowed in clear irritation. At her side, a younger me stares coldly at nothing in particular, eyes clouded but glittering with a venomous sheen. I've got a pretty awful look on my face, right? At the time, I was just completely empty. Didn't give a damn about anything or anyone. Pretty much just a dead kid that forgot to stop breathing. I guess Asako got so fed up watching me that she decided to try her hand at babysitting. Not exactly her field of expertise, you understand.
何があったの
It's a long story, but the abbreviated version is that my whole family died, and I was deeply involved in their deaths. I was responsible, so I couldn't just push the blame on someone else. That self-loathing was probably just too much for me to deal with. Wrapped myself up in a shell instead.
そっか
But thanks to Asako, I managed to get back on my feet somehow. She gave me, if not a reason to live, well then at least an excuse not to die. I might seem almost too vigorous these days, but if I hadn't met Asako, if Asako hadn't taken me in, well, I might have well died a long time ago.
命の恩人
More or less. And she went and died before I had a chance to repay the debt. Unbelievable, right?
悲しいね
That's not how I felt about it. Actually, I didn't really mourn when Asako passed. I'd been prepared for the possibility she might die at any time, but for some reason I still had a hard time believing she was actually gone. I guess there was a part of me that just couldn't accept the master of a woman who was really dead. If there was one word that described Asako, it was ridiculous. Not a shred of common sense in her body. She was a bull of a woman. The world was her personal china shop. And to me, she was something like a god, or a devil, or maybe both.
悪鬼とか神とかなんかとにかくすごい人だったのね
Okay, here's a story. This actually happened the same day the picture was taken. I was just sitting around, minding my own business, wallowing in self-hatred as I usually do, holding a private pity party, honestly. As if that was going to make up for anything, all of a sudden Asako grabs me by the hand and drags me off to the zoo. She showed me all these animals I'd never seen before. Elephants, giraffes, zebras, the whole deal. Probably hoping to get at least some minor sign of interest out of me. But, well, I was really acting like a brat back then. I mean, actually was a brat, but still. I kept myself inside that shell, not even twitching an eyebrow at anything she showed me. And I guess that attitude got Asako pretty irritable after a while. So the two of us are just standing there, staring at the lines in complete silence, when all of a sudden this one big guy opens his mouth wide and tries to scare us off with a giant roar. And the next thing I know, Asako's bellowing, "Shut the hell up! Don't growl me, asshole! I'll fucking kill you!" So, yeah, she was the sort of person who'd get into a shouting contest with the king of beasts and win. Woman was nuts. Nuts, I tell you.
すげえ。
I mean, her opponent was locked up in a cage. Anyone could have yelled at him if they wanted to. But when Asako screamed in his face, the animal actually flinched, then just backed away slowly. You should have seen the look on his face. So there I was, gawking up at her with my eyes wide open, thinking this woman was a complete lunatic. When I noticed I was smiling. I guess that was the moment when I started slowly regaining halfway normal emotions.
そのおかげで私もパパと出会えたんだから、私も感謝するべきだよね。
I don't know about that. Who says meeting me was a really good thing? I mean, hard to know for sure yet, don't you think?
そうかもしんないけどさ。でも少なくとも私の人生に一番大きく影響しているのってパパなんじゃないかな。
When you put it like that, I feel a lot of weight on my shoulders. Hey, Sako, I feel the same way as Makina. I remember what you said to me just before you died. Sorry, Yuji, ran my big mouth about teaching you how to live, but training you to do a good job in the shadows was the best I could manage. Maybe so, but I'm still grateful to you. But even now, your words are what keeps me stumbling forward. Without intending to do so, I ended up on a fairly lengthy digression about my past. Among many mixed emotions, a small flush of embarrassment rose to the surface. In an effort to hide this, I abruptly declared, "Break time over," then led Makina around to the shed out back. Although we always called it a shed, the building itself is pretty impressive. Not that different from the main cabin in size. It's a storehouse packed full of all the tools and provisions necessary to live up here. I pulled Makina along into the storehouse, seeking out weapons with which to confront the well-entrenched hordes of weeds that have flourished in the summer heat. Specifically, we retrieve a few hand scythes and spades and a lawnmower and a pair of straw hats hanging from nails on the wall. A good straw hat with a wide brim is indispensable for weeding under the blazing sun. I put on the hat Asako used when she was alive, then dropped the smaller one I wore as a child onto Makina's head. It takes us another 5 minutes of climbing up the mountains to reach Asako's grave. Not far from the summit, her gravestone stands in a spot affording an unbroken view of the basin below. While the location may be good, the gravestone itself is hardly worthy of the name. It's just a huge, fairly decent-looking rock picked at random from the woods, then half buried in the ground to keep it erect. In fact, the rough surface of the stone doesn't even have her name chiseled into it. It's a crude marker and nothing else. Even so, there's no doubt that Asako's remains are resting here. I was the one who took the ashes from the funeral home and buried them, and I was the one who raised the gravestone above them. When it came to religion, Asako's official position was no policy. She used to half joke about it. If I croaked, just bury me wherever, I won't complain as long as you burn me up first. You can just poke a popsicle stick in the ground for a gravestone. Left with these half-assed instructions to work off after Asako's death, JB arranged for the cremation and agreed to leave the rest entirely to me. I was at a complete loss for a while, but in the end decided to make the mountain where we'd lived together her final resting place. Nobody criticized that choice. Remote and lonely as it might seem, Asako never had a family to begin with, and her best friend JB had no complaints about my decision. But since I was the one who chose this place, the duty of maintaining it also rests with me. Starting the engine of the lawnmower I pushed up here from the shed, I have Makina hang back a while I mow down the weeds in one sweep. When that's done, I switch to my spade and quietly begin digging away at their stubborn roots. Makina falls behind as I steadily work my way around the clearing. As I hack down the weeds and pull them out of the earth, she picks them up and collects them in a heavy-duty trash bags. It's ridiculously hot, dirty, and monotonous work. Not a fun job in any way, shape, or form, but Makina holds out surprisingly well, not complaining even once as we fight our way through the overgrown wild grasses. We keep it up for maybe 2 hours, covered in sweat and grime. It feels even longer than that. By the time I finally sit down and stretch out my aching back, having fully liberated Asaka's gravestone from the summer weeds that had nearly engulfed it, we filled 8 of our 70-liter trash bags to the brim. Well, guess that's good enough. I slowly raise my tired body up off the ground, then turn around to look Makina and her dirt-smeared face. Looking at the girl biting her lower lip with something uncertain in her eyes, I realize I've been hacking away at the weeds in total silence this whole time. She may have been struggling along beside me in an attempt to be considerate. Slightly touched, I speak to her in the gentlest tone of voice I can manage. You're tired, right? Let's call it a day. Taking the towel I had wrapped around my neck for protection against the sun, I wiped the dirt from her face. Apparently, understanding from the gesture that I finished the simply greeting to my departed friend, Makina's formerly tense face loosens into a dopey, ticklish smile. By the time the colors of evening fill the sky, we've put away our tools and returned to the grave. I light a bundle of wooden chopsticks resting on a plate from the cabin's kitchen, a small welcoming fire for Asaka's spirit. Since Asaka loved her drink, I also brought a can of beer from the fridge. Popping it open, I set it upside down on top of the gravestone and let the contents pour out. The thin, fluttering flame and its column of smoke are the signal beacon. The beer is the bait to make sure she doesn't hesitate to drop by. I close my eyes and press my hands together. A moment later, I can hear Makina do the same. Hey, Sako, I'm still dragging my sorry hide around, trying to figure out why you kept me alive. No luck on that front. But even so, I think there are a few things I'm starting to understand, little by little. The things I can do, the things only I can do, the things I have to do, and the things I want to do. Tell me something, Asako. Was this how it was for you as well? Did it start off just as a whim, taking me in like this? And even so, did that small presence at your side end up becoming your reason to live? I'm starting to feel like I can understand now. Not that it's that complicated, really. You just saw my face one day and somehow you just vaguely knew it was one thing in the world you need to protect, am I right? All of a sudden you're telling yourself, now I get it. Maybe I've been living all this time so I could be here for this, to protect this one thing. This is a Zero Makina. I speak out loud to the wavering flame, introducing Makina to Asako's grave. See, look at that. I found something I want to protect as well. Just as you had your doubts back then, I don't know yet if I'm making the right decisions, and I understand that things never go as smoothly as planned. Amane and I, currently playing the roles of Mommy and Daddy, probably do possess broader experience and knowledge than Makina, and we like to think that we understand her to some degree. But even so, I can't say with any confidence that the well-intentioned advice we give her is necessarily worthwhile. In separating the right from the wrong, there's only one decision that won't lead to regret. One Makina makes herself. Right now, she says she wants to be a baker or sniper. But whatever road she chooses to follow, the decision ultimately has to be up to her. You told me something about this once, right? I mean, if you want to choose the better path, listen carefully to the people who walked the trail before you, as many of them you can find. Fortunately enough, Makina's still very young, so you'll have the chance to hear many people's thoughts, and I think she should actively seek them out. There's a limit to the amount of information any one human being can directly obtain. Don't get caught up with the things in front of your nose. Keep trying for the big picture perspective, and you won't go wrong too often. Right, Asako? Hey, Makina, want to say a little something to Asako as well? Still clasping her hands together and keeping her eyes shut, Makina quietly opens her mouth to speak. If it wasn't for you, I don't think Papa and I would have met, so thank you. Makina's softly mumbled words hit me harder than I'd expected. Sako, you moved on and left me behind. You did enough. You accomplished the job you were here to do. That's why you were allowed to die. I haven't earned that right yet, but I'll get there someday. I know I will. Think you can wait for me until then? The gravestone offers no reply to my silent question. I know perfectly well that this entire ceremony is nothing but a way for those left behind to find something like comfort, but I can still feel heat spreading behind my eyelids. Alright, I'm hungry. Wanna eat?
飯にしよう。
Taking the plate in one hand as our small fire begins to gutter out. Then seizing Makina's small hand in the other, I set off down the rough trail leading back to the cabin. As twilight gives way to darkness, I twist open the propane stopcock, then leave the bathwater to heat as I begin preparing dinner. But, of course, the fridge is a barren wasteland, and the vegetable garden up behind the shed has run wild with weeds. Our only viable provisions at the moment would be the stores of vacuum-packed instant rice and canned salmon piled up in the shed. I can't manage much other than gruel or fried rice with this.
キッチンの流しの下からパスタが出てきたのよさ。
Pasta? Ah, those are actually straight ramen noodles. Completely forgot we had that stuff. The packages Makina misidentified as pasta contain long strands of dried instant ramen noodles. We used to have these stashed all over the place, and the Hakata pork bone flavored in particular was one of Asako's favorite foods. After a few beers, she'd almost always devour a bowl of ramen heaping with vegetables. Now that brings me back. Asako used to make these for me all the time when she got drunk. Probably not the best idea to let her cook, but... Normally you're supposed to boil these for 3 minutes, but Asako opted for a 60-second stir-fry in a pan. She'd focus mainly on eating the toppings, picking out a well-simmered noodle every once in a while. Makina, you haven't tried these before, have you? Want to have some? That said, we've got nothing in the way of toppings. Can't hope to imitate the Asako-style tower of fried bean sprouts and cabbage doused in vegetable oil. Fortunately enough, we do discover dried chives and roasted sesame seeds under the sink, if not red pickled ginger or strips of pork. It's a little more than plain ramen, but in combination with the fried rice, we've at least got a somewhat respectable-looking meal on our table 15 minutes later. Rather than dinner, it does seem a little more like an oversized midnight snack, but perhaps owing to Amane's strong anti-instant ideology leanings, Makina seems to find some novelty value in the meal. She gobbles down the ramen in the blink of an eye, repeatedly yelling, "Delicious!" By the time we finish with this somewhat rough supper, the hour hand on the clock's turned past 8. Returning to Muhammad this hour would be far too troublesome, and more than anything else, I'm concerned about the danger Makina might fall asleep in the back and slip right off. All things considered, it'd clearly be best to set up camp in the cabin for the night, then make our way back tomorrow morning. Her belly full, Makina has already begun to mumble incoherently on the verge of sleep. I haul her to her feet and unceremoniously strip off her clothes, then launch her into the bath with a kick to the rear, tossing her dirty outfit into the beat-up old washer-dryer just outside the bathroom door. Still awake in there? As I'm transferring her wet clothes to the dryer half of the machine, I call out to Makina for the 3rd time in the last 10 minutes. Last thing I need is the girl falling asleep in the tub and drowning herself. If I strain my ears, I can make out the sound of Makina splashing around washing her body, as well as her cheerful rendition of Tuna Fish Man's theme song, which mainly involves yelling, "Maguro Man," fighting for justice repeatedly in a jumble of English and Japanese. But seriously, is that ghastly human tuna hybrid really supposed to be a superhero? Just seeing the character in context, I'm pretty sure I would have pegged him as a hideous monster of the week rather than the protagonist. But then again, the world is full of constant change. Maybe the children of the world have acquired a taste for the avant-garde in their Saturday morning entertainment? Either way, seems like I still got a lot to learn. When Makina gets out of the bath, I wrap a white towel snugly around her head and twist it back and forth until her hair is dry. Then slip an old Oxford shirt from my days as a student in America onto her as a temporary substitute for her clothes. Naked except for a long-sleeved man's dress shirt several sizes too large, Makina begins loosely bending her waist back and forth like a patient suffering amoebic dysentery, then coos "oh la la" in a high-pitched tone.
私、セクシー?
No. Alright, wait here. I'll get a dictionary so you can take a careful look at the definition of the word
きっ
sexy.
とぐれ納札されたふりしてくれてもバチや当たんないと思うのよ。
Whatever my faults, I pride myself on my sincerity towards women. And with that, I'm going to end the episode here, and I will see you all in the next episode of The Fruit of Grisaia. Take it easy.